Welcome to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. When you're ready to transform your sales for today's transforming market, we've got you covered with your host, the queen of cold calling and founder of Salesology, award-winning author, speaker, sales trainer, and coach, Wendy Weiss.
Hi, welcome to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. And I'm your host, Wendy Weiss. I am the founder of Salesology and the Salesology Prospecting Method, and I'm also known as the Queen of Cold Call. Today, my very special guest is Sandra Long. She is a LinkedIn author and speaker. Her company is Post Road Consulting, and she's a leading global independent LinkedIn consultant, instructor, and speaker. She is the author of the international best-selling book, LinkedIn for Personal Branding, The Ultimate Guide. And Sandra was the first speaker to share her ideas about LinkedIn on the TEDx stage in 2019. She's also considered a pioneer for women in B2B sales. She enjoyed a long first career in field sales, including area sales representative, field sales manager, national account manager, and vice president of sales. So Sandra is now in her second career. She is the president of Post Road Consulting, and the company's clients include sales teams, companies, executives, HR teams, universities, and associations, just about everybody, it sounds like. And she's a professional member of the National Speakers Association, and she's a board member of the New England chapter. So welcome, Sandra.
I am really excited to be here with you, Wendy, the queen of cold calling. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, yes, I wear my crown proudly. So I want to begin, as I do with all of my guests, I want to hear the backstory. You had an impressive career in sales, and then you became a LinkedIn expert. How did that happen?
Well, that was a pivot, but as far as the beginning, I started out as a salesperson who was doing cold calls. And so I could have probably used your advice early on. And the cold calls that I was doing were not phone cold calls. They were pack your brochures in your briefcase and go out to other businesses and go in and try to get a sales conversation going. So that's how I started in Lawrence, Massachusetts, selling office equipment. And then had a lot of opportunity to do different roles in the company, selling hardware, software, services. Just had a great run in sales, including leading sales teams. So it was fantastic. And then basically around 11 years ago, I made a pretty big pivot, as you mentioned. And before I made that pivot, I had started using LinkedIn for my selling, just really to research. I was trying to get smarter about my clients and prospects. So I was using LinkedIn to do research, and then started fooling around with my profile and trying to figure it out. And then people were coming to me at my company because LinkedIn was pretty new back then. People were coming to me saying, "Can you give me some advice?" And then it kind of happened. So it sort of organically happened that I ended up saying, "Wait, this is a thing. People need help with this." So that's how I started with my second career.
So I'm curious about the evolution of the name of your company, Post Road Consulting. Because I have a feeling, I could be wrong, but I have a feeling there's a story there too.
Well, it's so funny you should say that. Yes. Okay. A couple reasons I have that name. So Post Road is basically the main thoroughfare that travels from Maine to Florida, Route 1, Post Road. And in many places, it's called Post Road or Boston Post Road. And it was, back in history, it was actually the mail. That was a mail road, right? It was the main thoroughfare for mail. So that's why it was called Boston Post Road. So when I started my company, I was in Westport, Connecticut, and I wanted to pick a name for consulting that sounded local, but that was much bigger than local, that a lot of people would recognize that as a as a thing. So post road consulting. The other thing is it ties in with posts, social media posts. In the old days it was mail, and now we're into social posting. So it kind of hit on a lot of different levels. And very few people even ask me that question. I have to tell you that, Wendy.
Well, that hit me immediately, and I love that you are punning. So virtual gold star for you. So let's talk all things LinkedIn. Let's begin where I think most people probably are supposed to begin, which is with their profile. Mm-hmm. And maybe you could share some do's and don'ts when people are creating their profiles, business owners creating company profiles. What should they be including and what should they be leaving at home?
Okay. Well, so the personal profile is really the cornerstone for most of us from the relationship building and in terms of visibility. It's connected to a company page. So I do think it's a good idea to have both, but to really, for most, if you're a solopreneur or you're a very small business, you really want to focus on your personal, everyone should focus on their personal profile. But if you have a marketing team, it definitely helps if they can help with your company content, but they do work together. And in fact, when I work with organizations and teams, we make sure that we have a great company presence, and then individual salespeople have a presence that's going to attract buyers and prospects. So it works together. But the main focus is always one-on-one, people to people. That's what people want to work with people. They're more impressed and interested in getting to know a person versus a company, just generally speaking. So on the profile, if you're a business owner or sales leader, you want to make sure that your profile is speaking directly to your favorite prospect, right? And that you're able to clearly articulate. And it's not just the words and the language, but it's also the images that you use and the videos. I like the idea of using first person language because you want to come off as friendly. The way I look at it is I want to come off as a friendly, helpful expert, someone who's a trusted guide, not someone who's just boasting, not just someone who's giving out statistics, but coming across in a certain way that people think, wow, I want to know her. She can help me. She's she's the right person for me, has the right expertise.
So could you give us an example, like a before and after, like not so friendly to friendly?
Yes. Well, a lot of times I'll see profiles that are written in the third person. It sounds like a bio. It just doesn't come across as friendly, right? Or people who think that they just need to pull things, their statistics from their resume, like that they've accomplished all this. Whereas I'd rather them focus on really do the exercise of how do I really help my client, and making sure that is written up in their profile, right? How they actually help their client. So the person who comes to their profile recognizes it and says, "Oh, that's me. That's the person I need to talk to."
So what about you mentioned graphics or videos? What sometimes I see people's profiles and they're there with a picture of their dog, or they just have a picture of the dog. They're not even in it. What about the pictures, the graphics, the videos that you're using?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of opportunities. Okay, so the number one is the headshot, is having basically your shoulders and your head, not a full body shot, not you and your dog, but it's really a head and shoulders with a smile. Headshot, number one, important. Then the background photo, which is behind it, some people call it a banner, but it's a background photo. And that's an image that you select and you upload. And there's a lot of options about what you can use here, but I like to tie it into your brand, tie it into how you want to come across. So thinking about who you are, and if there's something related to your industry, maybe there's a picture of you doing something related in your industry, you can use that. But on top of that, there's opportunity for images and video throughout your profile. And my favorite section, and this is introduced in 2020, is the featured section, where you can upload a video, a PowerPoint, you can feature a post, it's a beautiful area, and it's pretty high up on the profile, and it really is a nice way to engage with your audience. You can pick multiple images and videos to put there, but when you're on the desktop, the viewer is going to see three posts or 3 examples. When they're on the mobile, they're only going to see one. So you have to think about which one do I want to position first? There's a little strategy and where do you position things? And then if you've got additional images and video and you can't fit them all in, you can put them under your experience, which is nice. So if you're describing, you might have a lot of options. So you can use those videos and images throughout your profile.
So does any of this change? Because we were talking about if you're a small business owner or a solopreneur, what if you're still a small business owner, but you have a team? You've got a number of salespeople, and so you're managing these salespeople. Does anything that that you're recommending that we've talked about, does it change if the business is a little bit bigger? A sales team and how their profiles are set up versus somebody that's a solopreneur?
Well, with the sales team, usually what we try to do is make it easier for them, because if you just, ask your sales team to update their profile, it's not easy for people, right? So what we typically like to do is create some of the content in advance for their profile, so that if we did a training, we've got the company content is all done for them. So all they need to do is focus on, how do I help my client, right? And then they can pull in images, videos, and written content about their company. Because really, the sales team, or any employee, they're representing their personal brand, and it's a tie-in with the company brand. Unlike Instagram, where it's just them as a personal brand, on LinkedIn, you're showing who you are as a personal brand, but you really are connected to your company. So it should work together in unison.
Okay. I think what I heard you say is that it's basically the same whether you're a solopreneur or you have team members, because the team members, the focus has to be on how each individual team member helps clients. And if you're a solopreneur, how do you help your clients? So it's the same whether you're a solopreneur or you have a team of people.
Right. The same concept applies, but let's say you have a team, and maybe it's geographic. So one person is going to talk about how they help their clients in New England or in the Midwest or in Ohio, right? And they can talk specifically about how they help their clients. Or maybe there's a vertical focus, and they can say that they help financial companies. So really, depending on kind of how they help, who they help, they can be specific to their client base that they're focusing on.
Okay. So let's assume we've nailed our profile.
Okay.
It is Sandra Long approved. It's really good. What's the next step?
Well, the next step is to have a strategic selling network. And it's one of those things that people assume they do, but most of the time they don't. In fact, pretty much, I always ask the question or do a little bit of an audit. And, it's all about being proactively connecting to the right people versus just randomly connecting to people who've invited you to connect. Right? Because the reason your strategic selling network is so important is that that's going to impact who you can find on search, who can find you, who's going to see your content, whose content you're going to see, who you can message, whose connections you can look. It impacts pretty much how you maneuver around LinkedIn, right?
So step one in being strategic is looking for influencers in your market, essentially.
Well, it's a couple things. So the first thing I always say is you want to start with connecting with people that are your clients and your prospect. Now that sounds so silly and so easy, but honestly, most sellers have not done that. Like systematically, I'm talking about systematically, Wendy, where you take your pipeline, you take you take all your client lists, all your prospect lists, and you actually go in and you connect with all those people. It have to be systematic. And then you think about, okay, my past clients, from my clients from an old company, people, they know me, they like me. So people that already know you and like you are going to be the best people to support you, to refer you, to introduce you, to comment on your posts. So you start with all the warm connections that you should be making. That's where you start.
Yes, I know that my system is if I speak with a prospect, I immediately go ask them to connect on LinkedIn because if I don't do it immediately, I will forget and it will never happen.
Okay, so that is exactly best practice. So there's two parts for the average, for someone who's listening, right? What you're talking about is going forward, absolutely doing it. But for many people, there's all the past that they can go. So there's like a backlog, the past clients, past prospects, that they can go back and also connect with.
So, are you saying that all the various random people that reach out to you on LinkedIn that say, "Hey, I want to connect," that you should not connect with them?
No,
Or you,
I'm saying be strategic about who you accept. I definitely don't accept everyone. I look people over and decide, does it make sense? Like, one of the things now you can see if a profile is validated, if they, how many connections they have, who do they know that you know, what is their business? And LinkedIn has actually made it a little bit harder now because they used to have more of an unlimited ability for you to get a personal note. And that personal note really helped me decide who I was going to connect with. But if you've noticed lately, there's many fewer notes. So that means you really have to be diligent and go look at that profile and do an evaluation. Does it make sense? Sometimes I connect with people and then they send me a message, I immediately unconnect because I'm like, that I made a mistake. I'm out of here, So you have
well,
to.
that is such an interesting idea because a question that I was going to ask you, I know LinkedIn has changed enormously over the time I've been using it, and I will confess here, Sandra, I used to accept anybody if they did not look like an axe murderer. But I've stopped doing that because what happens, you immediately start getting all sorts of spammy messages with calendar links, and so I like your approach better. So that is very interesting to me. But I am curious, as you are looking to connect strategically, um, how do you go about doing that? And how can a company or a business owner or a sales manager support its sales team in being able to do this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important. And the word I really was emphasizing before is systematic, because don't just assume it's happening, right? So it's something that everyone needs to work on. I mean, I think I love what you said, is getting into the practice every day of doing it, with, every single person that you're talking to that is a legitimate client or prospect. Because so when I talked about the clients or prospects as the first part, then there's, of course, as you mentioned, influencers and thought leaders, people in the industry that you wish to know. Those people, I like the idea of following them first, engaging with their content, and then connecting with them. So that's another, like the next level of connecting.
Well, one of the things that I've been curious about is because LinkedIn keeps changing the algorithm, like every 10 minutes, it seems like. How do you plan? How do you know, what we're talking about today might be really, really effective, and they change the algorithm next week, and then things are different. So
Mhm.
how do you accommodate that?
Well, so the algorithm, I mean, I don't like fret over that too much. I mean, I know that that's what seems to be everybody's like top of mind question, but it is going to constantly change, and they don't publicize what it is either. Like LinkedIn doesn't just say, well, here it is. People are always trying to guess it and study it and figure it out. So, I mean, the number one thing is trying to produce quality content, right? That if you produce quality content, but I'm also not a huge believer that you have to be a content machine. If you're a salesperson, you're pretty busy, but be focused on engaging with content, commenting, finding content that is strategic, that's related to your industry, and being engaged with that content. That gives you incredible visibility. So I'm not so worried about the something that's always changing, and focus really on quality and making those connections, because once you're connecting with the right people and you're engaging with them, they're going to start engaging with your content and you're going to get the visibility.
Okay. So we're going to pause right now for a word from our sponsor. But then when we come back, I want to hold your feet to the fire, Sandra, because I was reading on your website about increasing inbound leads. And I know how much all salespeople want those good inbound leads. All sales teams want those good inbound leads. So we're going to talk about that next. But now, a word from our sponsor, the Salesology Vault. Just about every guest that I have interviewed on the Salesology Conversations with Sales Leaders podcast has had a free gift for our listeners. And that does include my special guest today, Sandra Long. She has a gift for all of our listeners. So what we've done is we've taken all of those gifts and we put them all in one place just for you. We call it the Salesology Vault, and it's packed full of free gifts from sales leaders, sales experts, marketing gurus, revenue generation experts, and we add another gift every week. We release a podcast every Monday, and we add a gift. You can log in as often as you'd like and download as many gifts as you'd like. It's all free. So go to bit.ly/gift vault, or the link to the Salesology Vault is in the show notes. Go to the notes, click on the link, download your gifts. You'll be glad you did. And we are back with my special guest, LinkedIn author and speaker, Sandra Long. And so Sandra, I was reading on your website about how LinkedIn can help increase inbound leads. How does that work? We are all waiting with bated breath. How does that work?
Yes. Well, so there's many different ways that can work, but I would say one of the favorites is with content is especially if it's targeted and strategic around how you help your clients. So rather than generic content, thinking about exactly who you're trying to appeal to, what are those issues, opportunities that think about people that are coming to LinkedIn. They're coming to get news, they're coming to make connections, and you're putting yourself in their universe, right, with the content that you're producing. And as I said, it doesn't have to be a post, it can be commenting. So I'll give you an example of myself, all right, because that maybe bring it to life. So I've done a lot with B2B sales. And one of the things that I started to do this year in 2024 is focus a lot on helping events and people who are in the events industry. So I started not just mainly through commenting on people that were influencers in the event space, and not just adding great posts, but really being insightful, adding my spin about using LinkedIn for events. And as a result of me doing that, I've had inbound leads. I've had invitations to speak on podcasts. I've had people from major hotel chains invite me to connect. So people that are in the space and people that I want because of the comments that I've made around using LinkedIn for events. So that was very specific and been doing it sort of systematically. So anyone can do that and thinking about who is it you're trying to attract, who are they following, and just get into that motion of making insightful comments. Does that help?
That helps. And I'm also curious about the content in general, because you keep saying, content about how you help clients. But I'm just guessing that you're not saying that the content should be, oh, we do this and we do that.
Right. Oh, no, your profile. Okay. I'm so glad you said that, Wendy, because your profile is how you help clients, right? But your content is adding value. So it's basically, like, for example, on the event piece, I might talk about how important it is for in advance of the event to be connecting with, I'd be giving advice, I'd be giving insights, definitely not promoting myself at all. I never promote myself on my posts or my comments. But once they see your thought process, they see that you're adding value, then they want to look at your profile. That's how that works, right? Interested in the content, then they look at your profile and they can see how you can help them.
So how much time should someone be spending on any given day? Or how much, if you manage a team, like how much time should you be expecting that your team members are spending on LinkedIn to make this happen?
Well, I'm a big believer that you got to focus on productivity and focusing on spending time valuably, because you can really suck a lot of time out by, just scrolling along. And that's not what we're talking about. In fact, I would say that, it depends on the value. For me, like if I'm a believer that my brand and my connections and my visibility is directly tied to my success. So if you believe that, you're gonna be open to spending more time. If you're skeptical and you think this isn't, then you're gonna be fighting this. You're gonna say, I don't have time, whatever. But for me, I'm a huge believer that that our brand, our connections, our content, our thought leadership is going to make the difference. So I'm willing to spend the time. But I mean, you can do, I don't know, 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, something like that would be great if you could do that.
Okay. Yeah. And this was not coming from a place of skepticism, but rather at the end of the day, if you manage a team, you want those people actually speaking to clients or prospects. So
yeah,
if they're just in front of, their computer, their laptop, on their phone, and never ever talking to somebody, that would kind of defeat the purpose.
Yes. Well, I'm glad you said that, because one of the things when I'm working with sales teams, I always say, sometimes you're going to see something on LinkedIn. Don't just feel like your automatic response is always adding a comment, sending no, sometimes your response to what you see on LinkedIn is you pick up the darn phone, right?
Yes.
Like you pick up the phone, or you do something much more dramatic. If there's some opportunity, there's something you've been working on, there's somebody that that's doing something. I don't just rely, it's really a multi-channel communication. Sometimes that means picking up the phone or going somewhere instead of just replying on LinkedIn.
Yes. Okay. So I know, Sandra, you have a gift for all of our listeners. So would you share some details of your gift, which will be available not only in our show notes, but we're going to put it in the Salesology vault, where it will live forever and ever.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm offering a discovery call, like a chance to have a chat about kind of what you're thinking about, basically everything we just talked about here, but about your business. What's happening? What are the opportunities that you might have with LinkedIn for your business? So it's a 30-minute call, and I'd love to do it.
Okay, wonderful. So we're going to post the link for that discovery call in the show notes. So as soon as you finish listening to this podcast, go to the show notes, click on the link, schedule a time to speak with Sandra. And where can people find you if people want to connect with you? Where's the best? I bet it's LinkedIn.
You're right about that. Wendy, you got it right.
Nailed it. Nailed it.
You're amazing.
So we are going to put the link to Sandra's LinkedIn profile in the show notes. So as soon as you finish listening to this podcast, go to the show notes, click on the link, connect with Sandra. And you have been listening to Salesology, Conversations with Sales Leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales, with my very special guest, LinkedIn expert Sandra Long. And if you found value in listening to today's podcast, then think about one business owner, one entrepreneur, one sales leader, somebody that that you think would also find value in listening to this podcast. And please do share the link with them. And until we meet again, visualize yourself surrounded by cash, really large bills.
You've been listening to Salesology, Conversations with Sales Leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. Be sure to follow so that you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, please leave a rating and review, and be sure to share it with your friends. Tune in every week for more exciting insights and wisdom on transforming sales. And until next time, visualize yourself surrounded by cash, very large bills.